Now let's talk about the topic that is on a lot of people's minds. And I will start by sharing a small chart.
Yay, chart!
You know, it just can't. It's not a Nerds for Yang video if there's no data. But so hold on one second. Let me just share this. All right, this is from the latest Economist YouGov poll that just came out a couple days ago, and it looks at the favorability of Yang. And also, what I found interesting was this "don't know" row. So if you look here, 34% of males were unfamiliar with Yang, but 48% of females, of women, were unfamiliar with Yang. So quite a significant difference in terms of awareness. And I guess I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on why do you think it's not landing? Because some people have argued, hey, UBI helps men and women, and it should be beneficial to pretty much every demographic group. But for some reason, when you look at these numbers and then other polling numbers, we always seem to be doing less well with women than we do with men.
You know, honestly, this is nuts to me because for me, I feel like UBI is something that helps women more than men. And it's a policy that is obviously going to be way more beneficial for the caretaking type, which is mainly majority of women. So it's nuts to me. But at the same time, I get this percentage. I totally understand because among my friends, my family, you know, I talk to guys about Andrew Yang, and they know about Andrew Yang. Usually they're, oh, I've heard of him and everything. But every woman that I talk to, it's a no, I've never heard of him. And they're not interested in politics, and they just kind of, you know, listen to their, you know, what their boyfriend says or what their husband says. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a disengagement, I guess, from that whole thought process, which I totally understand because I was there too, you know, but it's kind of discouraging for me now. But I try.
Yeah. So when you do talk to women and bring up Yang, what's the initial reaction that you get from them?
A lot of it is skepticism. They're skeptical about, like, you know, the $1,000 a month. And then once I start talking about it a little more in depth, they kind of come around. And especially if I give more personal examples, like, hey, I know you and your boyfriend, you know, need to repair your car, you know, that's really going to help you out. Then they kind of start to come around and warm up and say, okay, well, yeah, you know, maybe I'll check them out. Or but it is a lot of skepticism at first. And I think a lot of the questions, the main one I get is like, well, how are we going to afford that? You know, how are we going to give everyone $1,000 a month? And they just kind of see it as the fairy tale, I guess, that's unattainable.
Yeah. Lacey, what are you hearing in Atlanta when you speak with prospective women voters?
You know, I have to be honest with you. I really haven't seen as big of a difference in male reaction and female reaction as maybe some other people have. We have a lot of females that are involved. Of course, I'm a female. I'm leading the Atlanta Yang Gang and been doing that strong since, you know, early this year. So I really haven't seen a big difference in the reactions between males and females. And in a way, I personally kind of scratch my head at this whole question because I think that there could be a little bit of residual from the whole, you know, we had a time with the Yang Gang supporters where there was some support that they were saying that there was support from people who are, you know, I don't know if it was white nationals or stuff online that was negative. And I wonder if this is residual of just a way that, you know, people online can say, oh, well, but he doesn't have that many female, you know, supporters. Obviously, you just showed us some numbers, so there's some truth to it. But my experience on the ground is that, you know, there's some equal, it's an equal response. It's an even response from men and women.
Well, I have some good news. I have some good news in these numbers. Let me show you. So while on the one hand, you're like, whoa, 48% don't know this number here. That's not fantastic, right? Versus 34% that don't know. But in terms of percent of females that are favorable, it's already at 8% very favorable, 19% somewhat favorable. So this number here. And males is only 9 and 22. And so what's interesting is that the strong support from females is almost comparable to males, even though there are so many females who are still unfamiliar with yang. So if we can turn that 48 closer to a 34 or ideally 0, you could argue, well, with what we're seeing for the people that do know about him, there's actually a very nice favorability bias for females, and unfavorable only 13% versus 20% male unfavorable. So it could be not necessarily that women don't like Yang, but they don't know about him. And when they do know about him, they're actually more likely to support him. But do you feel like are there some policies that you think he's not talking about enough that might appeal more to women? Or what advice would you give to Andrew if he was looking at these numbers and he's like, oh, how do we make these numbers look a little different?
Lacey, do you want to start this one?
I'm thinking on the answer to that question, because here's my thoughts. I think Andrew Yang is brilliant, and I think his team is brilliant, and I think they're doing everything in an amazing way. And so that doesn't mean that they don't have room to grow or there's things that they can't learn and do better. Of course, there are, and there always is for everybody, because we always can learn and grow, each of us. But that's a tough one, man. I mean, I think the strategy that the campaign has had so far has been excellent. I mean, every opportunity that they've had to go on shows that have high viewership of women, they've done. They were just on The Real this week. So that's great. I think maybe some on the ground efforts that are more targeted towards women might be a good way to go. And that's something that us as volunteers can take leads on. I mean, I think about places that women are, parks with their kids, libraries with their kids, malls. I mean, just different places like that we could brainstorm and say, let's target in those areas where women more tend to be more. But, other than that, that's a good question, Tom. What do you think, Jessica?
I actually agree with what you said about the campaign doing really well so far. I think they are. And I also agree with what you said about the volunteers targeting, women on the ground. I know, me and my daughters go out with our Yang cards, and when we're at the park or we're at the grocery store, it's mainly, women that are walking around that we're talking to. And I hope that does something. But I honestly, too, I want to see Evelyn more. I think that would be a cool thing, to kind of bring her out into the limelight. And I'm sure she is just awesome and brilliant too. And I would love to hear from her. And just maybe we'll draw some more female attention, if we can also put a female face on the campaign as well.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Tom, I'll just jump in with one more.
Yeah.
The other thought is the women who have won these freedom dividends, maybe, covering a little bit more of how they are being impacted by that and how that's impacting their lives, and maybe even pitching that to media from the campaign standpoint. That might be something cool that could be done. Because, I think as Jessica has pointed out in one of the articles she's written recently, it's incredible the way the freedom dividend will empower women. And so, in fact, if we were going to make an argument, I think it might be more empowering to women than it is to men. I don't know, but it could be. And so a woman who is in an exploitative or abusive relationship, or has a job that she just has to have because she doesn't have any other option, this would do so much for her. So I would argue that this is the most pro-woman thing that we could ever ask for.
So let me ask you this about the Evelyn conversation, because I agree with you. It seems like a woman's voice, especially, and then also just to get to know Andrew better through, his spouse, is appealing. And I think it helped Barack to have Michelle out there. On the other hand, I kind of feel like, and I don't know, but it's possible that not every spouse wants to be put out there. And we're electing a president, we're not electing a first lady kind of thing. I was kind of curious, how important do you think it is to have a super active kind of spousal running mate on the stage, you know, all the time? Or what kind of level of involvement do you think makes sense?
Well, I mean, personally, for me, I don't mind if she wants to stay, you know, in the wings the whole time. I totally sympathize with that. But I think that, I mean, just, I don't know if it was too that I was in like a conservative state in Arizona, but a lot of women who were, you know, Democratic and going for a Democratic candidate were saying, well, I really want to support a woman this time around because, you know, I'm a woman. And there's kind of like a, I don't know, I guess the, you know, camaraderie around it, around woman to woman votes, so, I mean, for those women, I could see Evelyn staying in the, you know, out of the limelight as a hindrance. But personally, for me, I don't care either way. Like you said, I'm electing a president, not a first lady. Obviously, if she supports him and what he wants to do, that's good enough for me personally.
You know, that's a good segue, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, Lacey, because Jessica just mentioned, you know, there are multiple women candidates right now. Obviously, the front runner or likely front runner Warren is getting great support. And I can say, as a Asian American, I will admit that seeing someone, you know, that I don't typically see potentially being in the White House, like that would be kind of a historic thing that I would identify with. And I gotta believe having our first female president, our first woman president, would also be amazing for all of us, but also would speak to women as well. I mean, Lacey, what are your thoughts on the whole, hey, Warren could make history, you know, versus Yang, who, you know, is another man?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're bringing up a really important point, because there's a lot of women, I think, who are excited and ready for the first female president. I think it would be wonderful to have a female president. But I think that is getting a little bit too far into what the Democratic side tends to, I'm learning, get too caught up in, which is identity politics. At the end of the day, we do not need to vote for a president based on whether they're a woman, whether they're a man, whether they're whatever race they are. What we need to do is we need to vote for the best person for the job. And to me, I don't care who that is. I don't care what race they are. As long as they have the ideas to empower the people and to give us what we need, that's the person that I'm supporting. Obviously, that person is Andrew Yang to me. I think as people, you know, continue to find out more about him, they will agree that he's the one that has the greatest ideas. So as much as that is tempting in some ways, you know, like, yeah, we want a female president. It's 2019. Come on. We don't need a female president that isn't the right one to lead us at this time. And I do believe with more time, we'll have that right one. But I definitely think that Andrew Yang is the one who is the most aware of the issues that we need to know and be aware of right now. And he's the best one that's suited to lead us as we go forward.
Well, let me play devil's advocate with you guys just for a minute. And I could take the position that we as a country came so close to having our first woman president. And we did from a, you know, national kind of vote point of view, maybe not from the Electoral College point of view. And now we have a president who is really questionable in terms of his respect for women. And wouldn't it be amazing to kind of like respond to that as a country and say, we don't want this kind of leader. We're gonna really show them that what, you know, how times have changed and how we can kind of like compensate for the current occupant. Jessica, like, do you not feel compelled to be like, yeah, you know, let's get a woman in there, especially with the guy we got in there now?
I actually think that's what I'm doing by supporting Yang. He is really respectful to women. He invokes Evelyn a lot and talks about the work that she does. He obviously values the work that women do really deeply. So I still kind of feel like it's a, hey, get out of here. We're getting someone who respects women in here, even though it's not specifically a woman.
Yeah,
Nice
that's
answer,
a fair point.
chick.
That's a
Come
fair
on.
point.
Talk about dropping a bomb right there. That's what I'm talking about. I don't need to say anything else. That was the answer. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this. What are your thoughts on a woman running mate?